Today, we are diving deep into the story of one of the most destructive computer viruses in history. We're talking about a single piece of code that literally brought the world to its knees. And it's this bizarre, almost unbelievable story of how a weapon was created, stolen, unleashed on the world, and then stopped by complete accident. So let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in this dim hotel room in the port city of Dalian, China. It's May of 2017, and for 5 days straight, there's a man just glued to his computer screen, pretty much living off quick trips down to the hotel restaurant. His name is Park. He's a programmer from North Korea, and that monster he's trying to build, it's not just some piece of software, it's a weapon. But here's the thing. So far, he and his team, they've been failing. They can't get it to work. And in their line of work, failure has some pretty serious consequences. Park's desperate struggle? Well, that's the first chapter in our story. It's the birth of a piece of malware that the entire world would very soon come to know as WannaCry. Now, the crucial thing to understand is that Park wasn't creating this monster from scratch. No way. His job was to take this incredibly powerful cyber tool that had been stolen from the U.S. National Security Agency, the NSA, and weaponize it. The only problem? He had no idea how to make it actually work for them. So what was this stolen tool? It was called EternalBlue. And honestly, it was a masterpiece of cyber warfare built by the NSA. It went after this tiny flaw deep inside Microsoft Windows, a flaw so fundamental that it could give an attacker total control over pretty much any computer. And of course, the NSA had kept it a secret for years. Park is just scouring the internet, desperate for clues. And then, bam, he finds it. A cybersecurity firm called RiskSense had been analyzing the NSA leak, and one of their guys had managed to completely reverse engineer EternalBlue and posted all of his work online. For Park, this was it. This was the missing key. He finally had everything he needed. So he gets to work, finally weaving all the pieces of code together. The monster is almost ready. He's exhausted, so he goes to sleep. But when he wakes up, it's gone. His machine has been wiped totally clean. Then a message comes through from his superior. An order came. They released the monster, unfinished. And the panic just sets in. It's out there. It's too late. And just like that, on May 12th, 2017, that flawed, unfinished monster was let loose on the world. What happened next? Well, it was nothing short of a global digital pandemic. The speed was just breathtaking. The first ransom notes popped up on screens in Asia just before 8 a.m. Less than an hour later, it had already leaped across the ocean to Latin America. By 10 a.m., it was absolutely tearing through Europe, hitting everything: train stations, corporations, even schools. In just a matter of hours, it had hijacked an estimated 200,000 computers. And it spanned nearly every single country on the planet, 150 in total. The entire world was in the grip of this thing. But nowhere was the impact felt more acutely, more personally, than in the UK's National Health Service. A third of its entire system just collapsed. Dr. Tony Bleetman, an emergency room consultant, described how his London hospital was thrown back into the dark ages. They were literally drawing maps of the ER on a whiteboard, tracking patients with markers, because every single computer screen was just showing that same ransom demand. So how did it actually work? Well, you can think of the attack as a two-stage weapon. First, EternalBlue acted like a digital battering ram, just smashing through the defenses of any computer that hadn't been updated. Then, it was paired with another stolen NSA tool called DoublePulsar, which basically propped the door open for the final payload. And that payload? That was WannaCry itself, which locked up every file and slapped that ransom demand on the screen. The world was paralyzed. I mean, governments, huge corporations, they were all scrambling. But the person who finally stopped this global catastrophe wasn't in some high-tech command center. No, he was in his parents' spare bedroom. Yeah, his name is Marcus Hutchins. He was a 22-year-old researcher, and he was actually on a few days off when he heard about all the chaos. A friend sent him a sample of the malware, and he figured, hey, why not? And decided to poke around. Just out of curiosity. So as he's analyzing the code, Marcus notices something really odd. The malware was trying to connect to this long, gibberish web domain that wasn't even registered. Thinking he could maybe track the virus by watching this domain, he went ahead and registered it himself. It cost him about $10. He had absolutely no idea what he had just done. In that one simple action, he accidentally triggered a hidden kill switch. You see, the virus was programmed to just shut down if that specific domain was live. And just like that, the global spread stopped cold. So overnight, Marcus becomes this accidental global hero. But the mystery was far from over. Who was actually behind this thing? And what did they really want? Investigators realized pretty quickly that this was not a typical ransomware attack. For a global event this massive, it only pulled in about $200,000. That's pocket change. On top of that, the payment system was a complete mess. There was no easy way to track who paid to send them a key. It was just way too sloppy. The motive had to be something else entirely. And that's when the FBI started connecting the dots. They analyzed WannaCry's code and found it shared some really striking similarities with malware used in two other huge attacks: the 2014 hack of Sony Pictures and that massive Bangladesh bank heist. Even more damning, they found reused IP addresses and email accounts that linked all three attacks. It was like a burglar using the same getaway car for 3 different robberies. This digital trail led them straight down a rabbit hole. They uncovered a North Korean front company, and then, through a warrant to Google, they found something incredible inside one of the linked email accounts: a resume. And on that resume was a photo and a name: Park Jin Hook, the very same Park from that hotel room in Dalian. The ghost finally had a face. So the case seemed pretty clear. North Korea's infamous Lazarus Group with guys like Park Jin Hook was behind WannaCry. But this story has one final and absolutely crucial twist. You see, the engine that made WannaCry so devastating, that EternalBlue exploit, it wasn't a North Korean invention. It was a weapon forged and stockpiled by the United States National Security Agency. North Korea didn't create the weapon. They just picked it up and used it after it was stolen and leaked online. Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, put it perfectly. He said this was the digital equivalent of the U.S. military having some of its Tomahawk missiles stolen. By choosing to hold on to this critical vulnerability for its own use, instead of reporting it so it could get fixed, the NSA had, in effect, armed one of its biggest enemies. And that leaves us with the central, really unsettling question of this whole story. When a government builds a weapon, and that weapon gets stolen and used to cause absolute chaos, who is truly to blame? It's a question that we're all going to have to grapple with in this new age of digital conflict.